What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Mikey McNuggets coming at you for an Ultimate Cavs show on a rare Tuesday afternoon. But we were going to do a show today anyway because I missed UCSS to go head over to the Cleveland Cavaliers practice facility to listen to Kenny Atkinson and Koby Altman address the media for the first time this season. And after they finished talking, and on my way back, the Cavs announced they signed Thomas Bryant to their final roster spot. Now, is Thomas Bryant a game changer? No. Is Thomas Bryant the difference in the Cavs winning 58 and 62 games this season? No. Will Thomas Bryant play barring major injuries? Probably not. And should the Cavs count on Thomas Bryant in a playoff rotation? Most likely no if all things go well. However, Thomas Bryant can play. And the Cavs, if you looked at their roster prior to this move, had one area where you could say, the depth in that, I'm not sure I love. And that was the depth with real size behind Jared Allen and Evan Mobley in the front court. And now you bring in Thomas Bryant, a guy who's really an all-or-nothing player. He's transformed his game, become a 3-and-D kind of center, not necessarily a perimeter defender, but he's a guy who can step out and make threes. He played for the Pacers in the NBA Finals last season for his career. He's played 8 years in the NBA, averages 9 points and 5 rebounds per game. He's been on some bad teams early, including the Washington Wizards, where he put up the majority of his stats, including the 2019-2020 season, where he played in 48 games, averaged 13 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 assists. He's become more of a three-point threat as a center as the years have gone on, and he's turned into more of a role player. The thing you probably most know Thomas Bryant for is the infamous picture on LeBron James's official all-time NBA scoring leader bucket. It was that little fadeaway against OKC, and as LeBron's turning around to take that jumper, you see Thomas Bryant calling for the ball in the post as he seals off a smaller defender. But he's a guy that, listen, can absolutely provide some spark off the bench, can give you a little bit of an offensive punch. We saw him make a handful of threes against the Cavs in the playoffs. So I think all in all, for a low-risk move like this, it's a great upside signing for Koby Altman and company, who continue to work the margins. They didn't have a ton of cap space to deal with. They're up against the second apron. Koby talked about that at length today during his press conference, and we're going to address some of those comments here in just a second. But they weren't going out big game hunting or big fish hunting. They weren't going to break up the core four. That's at least what Koby Altman says. Whether that's right or wrong, we can go back and forth all day on. So they were looking for ways to improve this team on the margins. And at the end of the day, the Cavs decided that signing Thomas Bryant and whatever Thomas Bryant can bring to this team on the court was more valuable than Tristan Thompson's veteran mentorship and leadership in the locker room. Because they could have brought TT back for a third time, continued to have him sit the bench and just be kind of the big brother to Evan and Jared and some of the younger guys on the team. But instead, they opted to go with the guy they felt could help them play in the playoffs at a higher level than Tristan, and that is a guy in Thomas Bryant who played some real minutes in the NBA Finals. I mean, if you go back and you look at his playoff numbers last year, he was up and down. Nope, no ads. Ads, please don't play. But Thomas Bryant played in 20 playoff games last year, averaged 9 minutes per game. Some he played more, some he played less. Averaged 3 points per game, 2.7. I'm rounding up. Shot 50% from three, 49% from the floor. So he's not an absolute nothing. I don't think he's someone you want to count on a night-to-night basis. But as an energy guy, a spark guy off the bench, you could have done a lot worse. And you got to remember, guys, these are players that they're looking at for this 15th spot who are not signed for a reason. And probably the only guy that I would have stuck my stake on and gone to war for that 15th spot if he would have came was Malik Beasley. And I am assuming, considering the reports that Cleveland reached out to Malik Beasley, the need for Malik Beasley, the caliber of player Malik is, that if he was willing to take a veteran minimum contract, which is all Cleveland could have offered, he would have been here. He probably said no. The Cavs turned their attention elsewhere and address a position of need. And that need is a third big man to play behind Larry Nance Jr., Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, and DeAndre Hunter whenever you kind of configure how Kenny Atkinson's going to handle those rotations. So Thomas Bryant, I like it. It's a low-risk, high-reward move. He certainly can give you some valuable minutes if needed. He showed that for Indiana and Rick Carlisle in this year's playoffs. He's a guy that can space the floor. We know Kenny Atkinson likes his teams to be spread out and shoot. Jared Allen doesn't give you that three-point threat. Larry Nance Jr. and Thomas Bryant both do, so that allows you to continue playing the style of offense you want. When Tristan was in there, it just wasn't the same. The Cavs couldn't run a lot of the stuff they wanted to run, some of the sets, even with Jared and his ability to move. Tristan at his age just wasn't quick enough, wasn't able to get to the spots. So teams would basically be playing 4-on-5, or they'd be playing defense in a way that forced Cleveland to play 4-on-5 offensively. So it's an upgrade. And at the end of the day, guys, the NBA season is long, 82 games in the regular season. It's a long, long time, and the Cavs were incredibly healthy last season. We've already seen some of the injuries in the offseason to Darius and Max and some of those guys as they continue to ramp up for the regular season. Darius' injury obviously happened at the end of last year, but you guys get what I'm saying. So having a body, a big body that you think you can play here and there, give guys nights off who isn't a zero, it's a win in my opinion. It's not going to change the outcome of this team. I don't think anyone's going to look at the Cavs yesterday and say, yeah, I have my questions, but now they got Thomas Bryant. I don't think it's that level, but for a 15th roster spot, I think you could do a lot worse. So all in all, shout out to Kobe, Mike Gansey, Brandon Weems, and that front office for identifying a player in a position of need that they think could benefit and help this team throughout the year. I want to mention one more thing on Thomas Bryant before I move over to some of these comments, but Thomas Bryant had spent the majority of the summer with the New York Knicks. He was with them for summer workouts. I believe he had a training camp invite. So I'm assuming the only reason he would leave the opportunity in New York to come to Cleveland is Cleveland guaranteed his deal. We'll get some of those details in the coming days. But mind you, this was a guy that the Knicks had brought in as a potential backup big, and all signs indicated to him signing with New York and being part of that New York roster for the upcoming season. Instead, the Cavs swoop in, sign him. Maybe there's a reason New York let him go. Maybe there's not. Who knows? Maybe Cleveland offered more guaranteed money. We don't know yet. But what I do know is if that 15th roster spot came down to Tristan Thompson or it came down to Thomas Bryant, I'd choose the guy that I think can play and contribute more on the court than the veteran leadership that Tristan brought. No disrespect to Tristan, but give me the player over the mentor 10 out of 10 times. All right, guys, let's get to some of the comments that Kenny and Kobe said. Before we do that, a quick reminder that FanDuel is the official sportsbook partner of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. And right now, new customers are getting incredible deals on FanDuel if you place a $5 bet as a new customer on FanDuel. And that $5 bet wins, you can get $300 in bonus bets. Guys, I did this the other day with a friend that bet won, and then their account showed $300 in bonus bets to use on anything they wanted. It's an incredible deal. Highly recommend it. Make sure you gamble responsibly. And if you want to sign up, head over to FanDuel.com/UCSS for more info. All right, as I mentioned, I wasn't on UCSS today because I was over at the Cavs practice facility. I was in attendance for Kenny Atkinson and Koby Altman as they addressed the media for the first time this season. They'll also give some comments next week at Media Day. And I got a couple takeaways. I want to run through this in no particular order. But first and foremost, the biggest takeaway, and this is something I've said all summer, this is something Jason said all summer. I don't think this is going to come as news to Cavs fans, but Cleveland is basically putting all of its eggs in the Evan Mobley basket. Koby Altman said, and I'm paraphrasing, this isn't an exact quote, but Evan took a giant jump from last year or during last year from here to here, and we still think he has a place to go from here to here. And I have said many times that if the Cavs are going to win a championship, Evan's going to have to be their best player. And that secondary jump from where he ended last season to where I think he can get to this season is the requisite jump the Cavs will need him to take in order to be one of those 3, 4, 5 teams that can truly compete for it all in May and June. They got to get tougher. They got to play better in the playoffs. Injury luck has to break their way. All those things have to happen, but it all starts with number 4. Kobe has said it. Kenny has come out and said it. Donovan has come out and said it. Darius has said it in inadvertent ways, or indirect ways is the proper way to phrase it. That they know how good Evan can be. The only one who doesn't believe is Evan. And there is no better way to get someone who doesn't believe in themselves to actually believe than to constantly push it down their throat, essentially, and force them to believe. And how do you do that in a basketball scenario? Well, 1, you put them in advantageous positions to build their confidence. And 2, as you mature and you get older, you kind of understand what is needed from you. You're not the young rookie trying to figure out your way in the league anymore. You are the wily vet entering his 5th season, You know exactly what it takes. You know the work it's going to take to transform your body. And Kenny mentioned that when we see Evan for the first time, we are going to see a noticeable difference in his physical strength. He also mentioned Darius Garland's put on some significant size because he wasn't able to touch a basketball for a big part of the summer as he recovered from toe surgery. We'll talk about Darius in a second. But the Cavs have made it abundantly clear. And we can argue back and forth whether we agree, disagree. In this instance, I agree with the Cavs. But their entire season is riding on the shoulders of Evan Mobley. They know it. He knows it. And now it's time to go out there and prove it. And I think the sky is the absolute beginning of his potential. I think he has a chance to be that good on both ends of the court. He just needs to kind of be a little more assertive and aggressive. And I think some of the moves the Cavs made this summer will put him in positions to maximize that. He doesn't have to score 30 points a game, but he just needs to be more assertive and make the most of his opportunities. And I think Cleveland and Kenny and Donovan in particular are going to force feed the ball to Evan early to make sure he gets those opportunities, especially early in the game, so his confidence stays throughout. Kenny talked about his love of Lonzo Ball. I mean, this dude could not stop gushing about Lonzo. He brought it up himself before someone even asked a question about Lonzo. Then he was asked a couple of follow-ups and just talked about the overall IQ of Lonzo Ball, the passing ability, the defensive ability, and the size of Lonzo. A 6'6" guard with elite defensive instincts. He's one of the smartest basketball players in the world, and he's an incredible passer. And those are all things that Kenny said we didn't necessarily have enough of last year. We obviously know the size in the backcourt, not enough of. The defensive point of attack defense, well, they lost Isaac Okoro, who was their best point of attack defender. Now Lonzo kind of steps in and fills that role. Ironic, they were traded for each other. The passing, Ty Jerome was great last year, but he wasn't a pass-first kind of player. Sam Merrill, same thing. Darius is the closest thing they have to a traditional point guard, but even he is probably a score-first kind of guard. And then you bring in Lonzo, who is a old-school, traditional, get everyone else involved before I take a shot myself kind of point guard. And I think that kind of mentality is going to feed into Evan taking that next step. And then the defensive instincts. I mean, Kenny talked about it. We've talked about it. The Cavs needed some size in the backcourt. They needed to be more active defensively, to not get caught in so many mismatches on switches that they just concede so easily. How do you do that? One of the most simple ways is you put taller guys on the court. And when you compare a Donovan or a Darius with a 6'6" Lonzo, it makes forcing those mismatches and forcing those switches for an offense so much more difficult because you're picking out one individual guy that the Cavs can cover for, not having two liabilities on the court, so you're not exactly sure which and where it's coming from. On the injury front, Kenny and Kobe both addressed Darius Garland's timetable and Max Strus's timetable, and they didn't give any exact dates to when they'd be back. But I get the sense that we're going to see Darius Garland a lot sooner than we're going to see Max Strus. Just from their tone, just from reading between the lines. I have no necessarily inside information on this, just kind of putting the context clues together. It sounds like Darius is going to miss the beginning of the season, but they're not too concerned about the long-term availability of Darius Garland. The way Kobe talked about the Max Strus injury makes me feel like he may not be back until January, February, and they're going to be extra cautious with him, working him back into the system. I don't even know what the exact timeline for Strus was, when the injury happened, the timeline the Cavs gave, and when that kind of adds up on the calendar, but I didn't get the sense from what they said by any means that this was something that was going to heal quickly. And in his absence, that means DeAndre Hunter is most likely going to be thrust into the starting lineup. Now, Kenny declined to address who's going to start at the 3 today, but he said, and I quote, DeAndre's probably been our best player this offseason. And Cameron Justice of Channel 5 asked Kenny, hey, how does having an extra offseason and an extra summer with this team and not coming in midway help you kind of unlock DeAndre? And he just gushed. I mean, gushed about the fact that DeAndre can do more than he showed, how difficult it was for him to come in the middle of a 14-game win streak into a new city, living out of a hotel, to just struggle to kind of get his bearings set and make sure he was fully grounded. Now he's here. Now he's healthy. And it's time for the Cavs to unlock whatever the best version of DeAndre Hunter is, because I do think in certain lineups, he can be the key to the Cavs being small, being gigantic, playing small, playing gigantic, or matching teams in a more traditional 1-5 setting. He is legitimately 6'8" with 7'3" arms and can guard 2s through 5s. Might even be able to guard some ones if he wants to. So I think DeAndre Hunter and his flexibility is a key for the Cavs, and Kenny could not be more excited for his possibilities. Another thing Kenny said that I found quite interesting was that they're not going to redefine. He basically said, we're not going to redefine the wheel here, right? We understand what happened against Indiana last year, for lack of a better word. We understand that we fell short of our expectations, but what we did for the regular season and what we did philosophically worked. And despite the fact that they've changed out a couple different players, the overall offensive philosophy, defensive philosophy, attacking approach, like that's not going to change. I forget the exact way he phrased it, but he said, we're not going to rearrange the wheel because we got a few new spokes. And we believe, and I'm saying this is Kenny saying we believe, that we're one of the 4 to 6 teams that can win the championship this year. It's a small group, and we thought we were in that group last year, and obviously we came up way shorter than. But with the core back, the core under contract another year, we're not going to reinvent the wheel to try and get a different result. We believe our process works. We just didn't accomplish and play well enough against Indiana to get those goals. So we're going to kind of run it back from a stylistic standpoint and see what happens. I actually asked Koby, I said, hey, Tatum's out, Halliburton's out. You guys brought your whole team back, won 64 games last season. Do you guys feel any added pressure or urgency knowing the opportunity that's ahead of you in the Eastern Conference this year? And Koby, as he should in these situations, did a real nice Euro step around the question. Didn't necessarily answer it directly, but he pointed out that this Cavaliers team over the last 3 years is the third best record in all of basketball, has won the third most games. They're under contract. Injuries are part of the game, and they don't want to see that to anybody. But they're never looking at their situation in a one-year vacuum. It's always a 3 to 5 to 7 year plan, because if you only focus on 1 year, you could end up having massive consequences on the back end. So even though he wouldn't admit to there necessarily being extra pressure, he did make it known that they fully understand the situation and the opportunity staring at them directly back in the mirror. They see the fact that the East is down. There is no clear-cut favorite whatsoever. If anyone is, it is Cleveland. It is the guys that he assembled. And now it's up to them to execute. And that's where it kind of falls back more on the coaching side of things than it does on the roster construction kind of things. And as we were talking, I had one quick thought. I wonder what the Thomas Bryant signing means for Dean Wade. Because now you have Dean, you have Larry, and you have Thomas Bryant, and they're all, in a sense, different versions of a stretch big, right? It's just different versions of it. Dean hasn't been great in the playoffs. There are a lot of people who like Dean Wade, a lot of people who don't like Dean Wade. I'm just curious, as I'm talking out loud here, what that signing of Thomas Bryant means for the future of Dean Wade. Bryant's cheaper. The Cavs are looking to get under the second apron of the luxury tax by the end of the year, which means potentially unloading some salary at the deadline. I think that means Dean Wade could be a guy in the chopping block. One other name I want to mention, because Kenny brought him up multiple times, Jalen Tyson. Kenny said his best attribute is playing hard. And while that may seem like a backhanded compliment, I think it's a necessary asset to this Cavaliers team. They need a guy with energy, with juice, with the Anderson Varejao-like impact that a couple offensive rebounds and a dive for a loose ball at midcourt can have on this team. Donovan, Darius, Evan, Jarrett, they all play hard. I'm not saying they don't, but you don't need your stars to be playing like they have their hair on fire. You need your role guys to come in and bring a level of energy that can change a game. Look no further than TJ McConnell. He's the perfect example of it. When TJ comes in, you feel his impact immediately, despite the fact that he is by no means the most athletic or the most talented player on the court. Why? Because he plays harder than everyone else. And the Cavs need a guy like that, and it will be Jalen Tyson this year. And especially with Max Strus out early, we're going to see a lot of Jalen Tyson. A lot of Jalen Tyson. And I am thrilled to see his development from rookie year to sophomore year and how the Cavs plan to fit him into their rotation and figure out what the best way to utilize him is. All right, guys, let's get to some comments real quick. Only a couple. Steve C says, what's up, Mike? Steve, appreciate you tuning in. Beast Girl says, I like the move. They needed a big. Spencer Premier says, what's up? What's up, Spencer? Nasir Aleph says they just need to stay healthy more than adding players. That is true. That is true. But you can't predict injuries are out of your control, right? Like you cannot predict when or if a guy is going to get hurt. That's why depth is so important. So if you do lose a guy at a random time, you have someone like Thomas Bryant who can step up, fill in, and not drop your level of play to where you're significantly hindered by said injury. Obviously, you want everyone to stay healthy. And obviously, if everyone is healthy, Thomas Bryant probably isn't playing. But these are the kind of moves you make. So if something were to happen to a Jarrett or an Evan or a Larry or a Dean Wade, you have an option. You have another guy to throw out there if the people aren't contributing. Thomas Bryant won the ring with the Nuggets, went to the finals with the Pacers. I forgot he was on that Nuggets team. So he does have back-to-back finals experiences. B. Skrill said, I heard something about Malik Beasley returning back to the Pistons. Nothing's official yet on that. He's still a free agent. Greatness, exactly. He's going to get some run. Kobe said, in terms of Jared Allen today, we appreciated him playing all 82 games last season. Probably wasn't the smartest move. I'd be shocked if that's something the Cavs allowed Jarrett to do again. And Oliver Von Sweets is spot on. He's good insurance for injury. Like I said, it's a good signing. It's not going to change the overall outlook or outcome for the Cavs, but it's certainly a good signing. Fatal Cheeseburger, did I say how tall he is? According to Pro Basketball Reference, which I think is the most accurate of all the basketball sites in terms of size, height, etc., he's listed at 6'10", 250 pounds. So he's a legit big. He's also relatively athletic, and he can move a little bit. He's not a super athletic JaVale McGee jumper per se, but he's pretty quick laterally. He's a little clumsy. He gets lost on defense a lot. He's not a perfect player. If he was a perfect player at 6'10" and can shoot like that, he wouldn't be a 15th man on a roster, but he certainly can play. And Parmajut says it is a nice pickup, which I totally agree with. All right, guys, that's this quick edition of the Ultimate Cavs Show. We appreciate you tuning in on a Tuesday afternoon. The Cavs have no more open roster spots. They have officially filled out their roster. Media days on Monday, and then they head to training camp, which begins later in the week. They fly out from Cleveland to Orlando Monday after media day. I'm guessing training camp begins on Wednesday, but I will get that confirmed for you guys in the coming days. I will tell you, after speaking with some people in the Cavs PR department today, it sounds like we're going to get some one-on-one interviews at media day, which will be awesome. So I can't wait to share those with you guys next week. For now, though, I'm McNuggets, and we'll see you tomorrow on UCSS. Peace.